The day after Camille, those people who survived saw destruction like nothing they had ever experienced before. Hurricane Camille wiped entire communities off the landscape. Camille killed 131 South Mississippians, including 3 souls who have never been identified. WLOX reporter Marcia Hill talked to a man who documented Camille's destruction for history. His film has never been seen by the general public until now.
Bring back a lot of memories of that storm.
In August 1969, Don Yarbrough worked as a photographer at the Stennis Space Center. The day after the storm, he flew the coast in a helicopter, capturing the devastation on film. Yarbrough says it reminded him of what he saw in war-torn Korea in the 1950s.
It was just shocking, because you wouldn't expect something like that on the coast, really, where you live, after you've seen the destruction of war, a war-torn country, and see your own home, you might say. It was just, like I said, shocking, and disbelief, really.
Damage covered the coast, stretching from state line to state line. Camille's huge eye had passed over past Christiane and Bay St. Louis. Graceful, historic mansions that dotted the coastline lay in ruins, victims of the high winds and water.
They were just destroyed. Some of them were just washed out in the bottom of them, and the top of them was still there, but they were just open in the bottom. It was just completely gone.
Roof damage, most of them flood damage, plus roof damage, you know. But just about everybody had some type of damage.
Martial law went into effect. Armed National Guardsmen helped direct traffic and prevent looting. Survivors were digging out. They found their homes heavily damaged or completely gone.
In this neighborhood, but mine was right down the corner and I don't even see it.
With no electricity, no water, no phones, the coast was completely cut off from the outside world. So the only way for emergency officials to gauge the damage was in the air.
We flew down to Pass Christiane first, and we were shocked to find that that $7 million bridge that goes across the Bay of St. Louis was literally out of service. Those 200-ton slabs had been displaced as much as 6 feet in some areas. That was quite a shocker because the centerline elevation of that bridge is 20 feet. The railroad bridge was totally washed out. The front beach of Pass Christiane was just absolutely devastated. There were huge craters in downtown Pass Christiane where once roads had been. And then as we flew on, I saw that some of the old landmarks had just been totally destroyed. The old mansion in Pass Christiane, the little Episcopal church. I saw the remains of what I thought at the time and proved to be later the Richelieu Apartments, where I had personally talked to some people that afternoon, and a lot of other folks had too, trying to get them out of there. We lost 23 people in that one complex. And then coming on in towards Gulfport, the damage was just obviously horrendous and far more than local government could handle.
As they continued their aerial tour, they saw the unthinkable.
As we flew down the beach on the aerial survey, there were automobiles literally thrown into the tops of trees. There were nothing but steps left where houses had once stood. The highway was destroyed in several places. The seawall held fairly well. The sand beach did its job. It attenuated the wave action a great deal, but it didn't give us much protection. As we moved on into Gulfport, we saw that Highway 90 was blocked by a seagoing barge. There was a seagoing tug vessel washed inshore several blocks. They drug it back to the highway later and made a little store out of it. There were perishable materials all over the place, washed from a rendering plant at the port of Gulfport. The newspaper had a large shipment of paper that had come in. We're talking paper now, 1,200–1,500 pound rolls that just floated all over the place and served as battering rams on the property that hadn't been destroyed before. And then there were 3 huge ships at Gulfport Harbor that were washed ashore, had to be dismantled later. It was on the vessel Seahawk that we got the top winds that were measured, 239 miles an hour. And then as we went on over into Biloxi, the damage wasn't that much less. It just kept going and going and going. And finally, over to, on Point Cadet, all the way up to Lee Street, was littered with houses knocked from their foundations, floated over against each other. Those that weren't just torn into splinter wood.
The destruction was everywhere. At the 120-year-old Church of the Redeemer in Biloxi, only the bell tower withstood the storm's fury. Historic Beauvoir, a survivor of countless hurricanes, was still standing when everything around it had fallen. Amongst all the rubble, disease was a threat. Bodies, dead animals, and live ones like snakes and rodents would spread sickness quickly.
Dr. C.D. Taylor, the local town doctor, if you walked around town, he stuck a needle in your arm and gave you a shot. He did that to me at the corner of Market and 2nd Street. I don't know where he came from. He just walked up and gave me a shot and said, "You need this."
The coast needed help, and it came quickly from all over the country. Harrison County's 2 military installations, the CB base in Gulfport and Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, pitched in too.
And the way these young men helped our community is just almost beyond belief. Keesler turned out 10,000 men to go into the community with their bare hands and do what they could, and they did a great deal. The Navy base had manpower and materiel out moving the huge mountains of debris. Those men made a material contribution to the survival of this community.
The community did survive, although it would take years for the coast to recover. With help pouring in from around the country, residents were determined that Camille wouldn't break their spirit. The American flag became the symbol of courage and hope.
The volunteer organizations responded to the community's needs in a fashion that was heroic. The American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the Catholic Charities, the Baptist Organization, the Mennonites. My goodness, the Mennonites stayed here and worked for about 3 years. One day a gentleman showed up and he had 100 strong, and he said, "All I need is transportation. Just show us, point us in the right direction." And it was 3 years those fellows worked here.
The tragedy of Camille brought each of the coast communities together. No one has forgotten the monster storm.